Hello, my name's Tyler Rowe, and if you're watching this, chances are you have a child in my AP Physics class. And so the purpose of this video is going to explain what my classroom looks like, because it's very different than the normal traditional classroom where you go in, you learn by taking notes, watching videos, whatever, and then going home and working on homework. In fact, it's called a flipped classroom, which is the opposite of that. So a flipped classroom is kind of what it sounds like, where we take what happens in a normal classroom and we flip where the different types of learning happen. So in a normal classroom, kids go to class and then they get a lecture given to them by the teacher. Maybe they do an activity or something, but it's within the classroom that they first are exposed to the information. Then they can take that first exposure, go home, and then they work on bringing more details from that initial exposure into the material. They work on getting those additional details done at home. Whereas in a flipped classroom, they're going to learn those smaller, more basic ideas at home, and then they'll come into class with that knowledge already there, and then they can build on it with the teacher there to help guide them along. And so the way that that'll work in AP Physics is the students will watch videos, and they're made by a guy named Dan Fullerton, who was a high school AP Physics teacher in the New York area. And he was very, very big in the AP Physics community. I say was because now he teaches at a college, so he's not as active anymore. But whenever you would go to an AP conference or training or whatever, if you ever mentioned the name Dan Fullerton, everybody there knew who you were talking about. And he makes very, very good videos. So the students watch them because he puts them out for other teachers to use to save us time, and quite frankly, because they're really as good as I could make a video, if not better. So now you might be asking yourself, what's the point of doing all this? And so this is a very recent thing. The idea has always been around in things like English classes where, the student is supposed to go home and read chapters 1 through 3 out of Huck Finn or something like that, and then they come in and discuss it. And it's the same concept with the flipped classroom, but it's only become big recently because the only real option students had to learn was just by reading a textbook, which is not the best way for 95% of people to learn. But now that we have one-to-one where all the students are able to take a device home with them, the vast majority of people have internet access. Now this is becoming a huge topic in education. There are a lot of people that are switching over to it, especially at the college level. And so there's a lot of research that's gone into it. And for part of my master's program in educational technology, I did a lot of looking into, is a flipped classroom as good as, what all of my professors had told me through my undergrad. And what I found, every single research article had some type of improvement in student achievement. I could not find a single one where students did any worse compared to their counterparts who just had a typical lecture. So the advantages of doing it this way are huge. And the reason being, instead of spending that time at the beginning of class, or not just the beginning, for basically most of class, going over some of the basic information, just like definitions and procedures, stuff like that, that's real easy to get and memorize and stuff. Now we can spend all that time in class going over logistical things. Why do things work? We can do examples. Students can work on homework and things like that in class so that when they have problems, they're not just stuck at home banging their head against the desk. They're able to ask their classmates. They're able to kind of help each other out. They can ask me. I can help them out. If I see that there's anything that, I'm getting a question about it a lot, I can pause what everybody's doing and do a just real quick 5-minute lesson to address that need. And so because I'm able to tailor the class so that I aim it more at helping the parts that are hurting, and I'm spending less time just going over the basic material, the students are able to get a much better knowledge of the content. And this is, like I said, it's been shown through research. So now you're probably thinking, okay, well, I've never done a class like this. This might be the first class that your child has had that's flipped. So what is it supposed to look like on their end? And so the biggest thing, and it's kind of obvious, but the biggest thing is to watch the videos, and more importantly, to watch the videos when they're assigned, and then to take notes on them. So the videos are essentially replacing the lectures that we would have in class. And you wouldn't expect your kid to, sit through a whole lecture and then not take any notes on it, and then all of a sudden just magically have the information. It's the same with the videos. While they're used to just watching videos on YouTube and saying, oh, well, I got the information, a big part of that incorporation is physically writing it down. And so by doing that, they're engaging more areas of their brain, and so it's more likely to stick. So they need to take notes, and just as important as taking notes, they need to watch the videos on time and when they're assigned. So at the very beginning of the unit, I'll open up a module on Canvas so they're able to see all of the videos that they're going to be assigned that unit, and it'll have the due dates for all of them. And that'll let them plan ahead. So maybe you're going out of town, maybe they have a sports game, or they're working a bunch of nights in a row or something like that. They can plan around that and get videos done ahead of time if need be. But they have to have that video watched by the time we talk about it in class. It's just like the analogy that's been used for countless things where you're building a house and you need the foundation. The videos are the foundation in this case. And if they don't have that foundation laid by the time we come to class, whatever kind of work we do on top of it is not going to stick because they're not going to understand the basics. So that is an absolute necessity that they watch the videos when they're assigned. A lot of students will procrastinate it just like they do with every other type of homework, and they'll wait until the night before and then the test, and then they'll watch them all, and then they get confused as to why they didn't do well because they watched all the videos and they did all the stuff in class, but because they didn't do it on time, it wasn't as effective for them. The other mistake that students make with this flipped classroom is that they don't ask questions. And I'm not sure exactly what the reason for this is, but as they're watching the video, they should be looking for different things that they don't quite fully understand. So maybe the definition that they were given is a little weird, or there was some information given to them that required knowledge beforehand that they didn't have, or anything like that. Any point of confusion, they need to make sure they ask it. One of the biggest pet peeves I have of students in AP Physics is that they don't ask questions. They are used to just knowing the material, and for them, this is the first time that they've run into content that just doesn't make sense to them on the first try, and so they're kind of stuck. So at the very beginning of every single class, when there's a video assigned, I'll spend the first 5 minutes or so just going over the video, and that is the time to ask questions. And unfortunately, it's usually only the same 2 or 3 students throughout the entire year that ask questions, and everybody else just kind of sits there and hopes somebody will ask the question. So I really encourage you to encourage your child to ask questions if they have them, because chances are they're not the only one in class that has them. But if they're too embarrassed to maybe ask in front of their friends, just encourage them to ask me, when they're working on stuff, or to come in sometime after class to maybe get something clarified. But most of the students I have that struggle because they don't seek out help. So ultimately, I hope that based on this video that you have a better understanding of what's going on. And from what I've seen in the past, students tend to prefer this flipped classroom because it gives them a little more freedom to do things when they want to, how they want to, and it makes it a little more individualized for them. But if you have any questions at any point in time, whether it's now at parent-teacher conferences or just during the middle of the school year, please don't hesitate to contact me, preferably by email. You can call me by phone, but I'll try to get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video, and I'm looking forward to having a great year teaching your kids.